Excellent. I started the archive, and maybe I'm a second or two late. But
No, that's fine.
I like to Oh, listen to that. We should incorporate that into the show every now and then. They've detected our signal and they've sent out the squad.
Swarm.
There they go. The wheeling for the WFD. Oh, here comes the other one. Must be a big thing. Did I leave? Oh my gosh, did I leave that teapot on at home? No. We're okay.
No. How would we ever know? Gee, there seems to be a lot of fire trucks.
There goes the big one.
That is a big one.
They're all orange now.
I know. Isn't that fascinating? They aren't red anymore.
I think they're all made by Kubota, but I'm not sure because I know Kubota lawnmowers are orange. All right, okay. So they're fine. They're beautiful, and I love the Wheeling Fire Department. They are doing great work.
I do too. They're very nice folks, actually.
And they're right up the street here. And you know what? They often come down to Smart Center Market to do astronomy things when they're on duty here, where they keep their little walkie-talkies handy so they can head out. But that's great. Well, Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Richard.
Good morning, and welcome to Radio Science News.
You folks are tuning in with Mr. Richard and I for Radio Science News. This is broadcast on July 10th, 2021. This is episode number 793 in a series. You would think that's a prime number, but you would be wrong. The factors are 13 and 61. It's hard to sort of factor that in your head very easily.
I know.
But, 1361, episode 793 in a series. I'm just astounded. So, what we do every Radio Science News is that we get you folks started to get to the launch pad of science. And how I do that, I go to my favorite webpage on the internets, and that is at www.smartcenter.org, SMARTCENTER.org. And that gets me to all kinds of cool stuff, science-y. And then I'm going to click on the words Radio Science News, the link, the underlined link right above the trifecta rainbow there that says Radio Science News in triplicate. And let's find out what Richard has in store for us.
It's all there.
And again, I see this when you see this, which I think is just really cool. Oh, the variant.
The variant.
Oh, I think I know where that's going.
The climate
tip. It's going
tip.
bad. Climate tip.
And a semi-super.
Semi-super.
You're going to like the semi-super.
Dendrites. Meat. So talking to a vegetarian there. Moonface.
Hey, Moonface.
Then
Mercury, you're going to like
Jupiter,
these.
Saturn.
I've got Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, but actually,
like Mercury, Jupiter,
Saturn. They don't all actually apply to a planet. They are different kind of things.
Oh, okay.
And I think you'll like that.
Well, okay, I know that Mercury is also a element, but Jupiter and Saturn are not elements or compounds.
No.
Okay, so I'm fascinated. Okay, infrared hand. Ooh, got some hot hands.
Got a hot hand here.
And then Fox weather. FOX.
I know this is.
I'm fascinated.
Oh yeah, I'm fascinated.
What exactly is Fox weather?
Well, let me just not to be so much like a spoiler alert, but as some people said that Fox is going to do for weather reporting and and climate issues what they've done for the news. So if that gives you any comfort,
well, that ought to be fascinating.
Oh yeah. Then there's the one topic that we didn't make it to last week.
We did not get to it. No.
The eusocial fern, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at those words, truly, and then social.
Eusocial, we-social,
but a fern?
All social.
Yeah.
Social.
Then a cool thing about cave art.
Okay, I love cave art.
And I thought we're going to drop in on Rossi.
Just find out how he's doing.
Well, I'm telling you, I know it's like. Now, see, my problem is I've actually been trying to listen to some of the news this week, and what basically happens to me is I can take so much of it because. I mean, I've always had this thing as a child and being raised as I was raised as a Catholic, and there were always things like we studied like things
that
about
you were
the
raised
truth.
as a wolf.
Okay, all right.
That's true.
But just little simple things like, gosh, I'm comforted when I know something is true.
Sure.
And then when I see things that I know that are true being said that aren't true, or vice versa, I get a little. So I've been kind of bouncing over on my cable channels too. I've noticed that it's not officially Shark Week yet.
But there's
National
a lot of
Geographic
things going on with sharks.
Well, sure. I'm thinking this is like a knockoff of Shark. It's National Geographic.
Pre-Shark Week.
Well, National Geographic is doing what they're calling it Shark Fest, and so they're having all kinds of really fascinating.
I'm not sure that you should be doing that, because
I know.
If we start doing that, then you'll start seeing things being sold for Christmas in, like, I don't know, October.
Yeah, I want Shark Week to be real, not just.
I want it to be a week. I don't want. I want it to, just ribble on and on and on.
Shark Week.
Hey,
but anyway, so I'm just going to say that I've been thinking about sharks a lot, and I as I'm doing this, I'm just noticing all sorts of interesting things. Like there was that tropical storm that turned into a hurricane that went through Florida this week.
Sure did.
Way early. Everybody's going, well, we weren't ready for this. And I'm thinking, yes, just like a shark attack. You weren't ready for it, but it could be coming, right?
Oh, so you're saying that because the weather's changing and there's all this stuff, that maybe we should extend the week of sharks longer, because
make it year round.
Everything else is getting longer.
Yeah, because literally, I would see these connections, and I know that sometimes you go, well, don't be looking for, but for example,
you always have to look for the patterns.
Well, of course, one of the big patterns is that Florida itself, because it has a high population, it has a huge coastline
gigantic coastline,
a lot of beaches where a lot of people go, and then there's this other issue of
it is low to the waves.
Oh yeah,
low.
yeah, and there, it turns out that as I'm watching this little story about the tropical storm Elsa, and one of the things they were saying, it's going to swing by, probably not hit Miami. It's going to hit the Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. And one of the things in the shark thing that they were talking about was the fact that because of certain water temperatures and things, that's all these sharks are like coming into 1 or 2 or 3 feet of water.
Sharknado.
Well, no. Did we pull out of NATO? No, that was different. So, but immediately the thing that occurred to me was they pointed out that tropical storm Elsa would enter the Gulf. And I think the average temperature of the water was 80.
Warmed up.
It was 84 or 85 degrees, and they thought that in the time period where it just came around the tip of Florida, went through the Keys as a tropical storm, it would ramp up, and it did. It became
imagine that, just like real. Understanding of science works.
It was this. Somebody said it's just like rocket fuel on a hurricane, and I thought,
can you imagine?
80. I think at that time he said the average temperature was 80, 84. So it comes through the actual Gulf Stream area there. So anyway, well, I'll tell you what, since we haven't been doing charts so much, I looked for a chart. I said, I know some people are probably out there desperately hoping, could we just have a chart this week? Let's go back to the end, because the chart I found had to do with, how is your state doing? How is the COVID-19
I'm not sure I want to see this.
Well, how
is the COVID-19 vaccination campaign?
So we're going to just glance at this
in your state
and make you aware of this, because
this is updated July 5th.
Yeah, and it says it'll be updated. Okay, they're going to. So now then, updated. So I'm looking down because I'm looking for a real chart. And so what they have is, it's an interesting little chart, because you're a big hexagon fan.
I love hexagons.
And it's kind of like what they've done is stacked hexagons to vaguely look like.
What's interesting is as it goes horizontally, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. That's an interesting. It says fully vaccinated, 37.5%.
So
at least one dose, 43.9%. Population 1,792,147.
Yeah, so what we're actually looking for in this case is the darker the shade of blue, the better off we are.
Oh, well, that's a shame, because we are the very lightest shade of blue there is.
We're light, all right. We're a light color.
Light on our blues there.
Okay.
So wait. So you're saying
we're being lumped in with all of these southern red states.
That in the hexagonal grid pattern here.
Yeah.
There are 6 states that border West Virginia. If West Virginia was a hexagon, and the only one that comes anywhere close is a place called Tennessee. And Tennessee is 37.7% vaccinated, where West Virginia is 37.5%. So even Tennessee, which is bad off, is slightly better than we are.
Well, I'm trying to, and the thing is, I was hoping maybe they would just say which was the absolute. So if you're clicking, I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
Did you hover over it and get a number?
Yes,
'Cause
yeah.
When I'm hovering over, nothing is showing up.
Oh, okay.
So it must
when
be an issue with my browser.
I do it, everything. So when I put it over West Virginia, I'm getting numbers. So let's go over to Wyoming. Wyoming fully vaccinated is 35.4.
Okay. How about let's cruise through the
Idaho,
South. Oklahoma,
okay,
Louisiana.
Oklahoma 38.8, Louisiana 35.4, Mississippi 29.9.
Oh, man.
Alabama 33, Georgia 37, Tennessee, as I said, 37.5, Arkansas 34.6, West Virginia 37.
Just for fun, let's get completely out of the mainland. Let's go over to take up, for example, I was on Guam. What do you have happening on Guam?
You've got 55.5%.
Well, that's better. What
have
about
been fully vaccinated?
I see right next to it. There's a little place called AS, which would be American
Samoa. I've spent about 8 years there. Fully vaccinated 38.8. Are you telling me that West Virginia is worse off than American Samoa? Well, I think that makes sense, because if you look, the overall population of American Samoa is only 55,689. You could vaccinate everybody in American Samoa if they wanted to be in a week easily.
Well, okay, so I hope they will do that. But
I do too.
Now,
Now,
there's your chart.
The Virgin Islands, for some reason, only 33.8%. So you were saying that Illinois is
No, I think Missouri. Maybe Missouri
was it Missouri?
I'm
fully
not sure.
vaccinated 39.4%.
No, they're not
but
that
it also
bad.
has 6.1 million people too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well-
now what's fascinating to me is that in the Northeast, everyone is dark blue. In the South, almost everyone is lightest blue.
Yeah. Well,
Now is that just me trying to find a pattern, or is that the pattern trying to find a solution?
Well, I think you are seeing a pattern, and then of course some people would link if you put other correlates in there, like say party affiliation, those kind of things. I think you would see some patterns. But without saying any more about it, I'm just going to please recommend that everybody get vaccinated.
Especially if you live in a place called MISSISSIPPI. You're at 29.9% fully vaccinated. That's miserable, folks.
Well, the tough thing about all of this math is that we have an issue of if you are vaccinated, it's basically almost, there's never 100%.
No.
But the odds that you would, even if you somehow got a crossover infection, contracted the new variant, when we're talking about the one that we're concerned about now, the Delta, you will probably not have serious or even hospitalization or death.
Yeah.
The opposite is true of the other, because it's I'll tell you what. Let's go back to our first topic, actually, which would have been the variant on the left side of our radiosciencenews.org page. Delta is now the dominant variant in the U.S. And when we were talking about this, this is actually from like the middle of the week, I think.
Okay, so we're going to go to...
Okay, so last week where we were literally looking at a Saturday where they were talking about it being 26 something like %. Mm-hmm. And they said that it was going to double. I thought they said... at first I was worried it was a week, but I think it was every 2 weeks.
I thought it was every 2 weeks also, but I could be wrong.
Well, I'm just going to read you a quick...
probably not.
I'm going to read you a quick paragraph from this NPR story. The highly contagious Delta variant now accounts for more than 51% of COVID-19 cases in the U.S., according to new estimates released by the Centers for Disease Control. And that's the B.1.617.2. Was first detected in India and now spreading quickly across the globe. So... Okay, so here's what's very frightening to me.
I just went to what we did last week.
Yeah, checking your notes.
And I said its prevalence is doubling every 2 weeks.
Okay, wow.
So we both remembered 2 weeks. Well, it's not been 2 weeks, and it's yeah.
Well, now the next
I don't know
the
what
next
is going
paragraph is that I found is very frightening. Is that so? Some Midwestern states like Missouri, Kansas, and Iowa. It says the strain accounts for more than 80% of new infections.
Holy cow!
And it says already, and then we're talking about Western states, Utah and Colorado, 74.3%. And then in what they consider the southern states, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, 58.8%.
That's a lot of percentage.
And then Dr. Paul often says, right now we have two Americas, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated.
Yeah, I know. This is a real concern.
Yeah,
folks, get your vaccine, please.
Yeah, well, really, there's no sense us trying to beat anybody over the head with facts and logic and stuff. The information's out there.
It's
and,
just there. Just
do it.
Do the right thing.
Just do what Nancy Reagan. No, she said, just say no. That
just say no.
Forget. I'm sorry. No, forget that. Okay, never mind. Scratch that.
Never mind.
Would you edit that out, Robert?
I shall.
Okay. Well, let's just move ahead to the first show. Climate tip, or in this case, I shortened tipping points.
Oh, the climate tipping point. Studies add to concern about climate tipping.
And this is from your physics friends.
Is that a bleak looking landscape there?
Wait a minute, that looks like my yard. No, it doesn't. Okay, so
it says two models studies document the probability of climate tipping in Earth subsystems.
See, now I found that fascinating because a lot of people don't realize that we have a lot of interconnected systems, and sometimes
there are subsystems within the system.
Well, yeah, and like a lot of things, like you could have a system of, I don't know, let's say you have a lawn that's been planted, and the people put a bunch of stuff that absorbs water, and so the lawn by itself is a system that can sustain lack of water for a good period of time.
Right.
So if all of a sudden the other subsystem that you're not aware of is like rainfall in your community just disappears, this other system might look good for quite some time, and you go, well, I guess we're okay. But so what are these subsystems they're talking about?
The finding supports the urgency of restricting carbon dioxide emissions as abrupt climate changes might be less predictable and more widespread in the climate system than anticipated. The work is part of the European TIPS, TIPES project coordinated by the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, but was conducted by blah, 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 in Paris, France, Meteorological Institute of Belgium, Naples, Italy, blah, blah, blah. Tipping could be imminent.
Now, I see. Now, down at the bottom of that paragraph, they list what they consider the subsystems.
Yeah, so the subsystems says it's often assumed that climate change will proceed gradually as we increase the amounts of carbon dioxide
that would be so
in the
nice.
atmosphere. Wouldn't that be nice? Over the last 15 years, however, it's become increasingly clear that the Earth's climate system or subsystems thereof, such as sea ice cover, monsoon systems, and ocean currents,
we've talked a lot
might
about that.
Shift abruptly and with little warning as carbon dioxide levels go up. This is known as climate tipping. I just want to say that if any one of those three goes out of control, like bang, we're all in a world of hurt.
Well, and what concerns me is they've hit these specific things that have a lot to do with temperatures moving and shifting. The one that we've heard a lot of people almost, sometimes we go, don't panic, let's study this. But when they talk about the ocean currents, the ocean currents, now which of course, and again, they're all related. If the sea ice cover would all of a sudden melt and dump a lot of fresh water into the North Atlantic, we know that that thing that transports, as we just mentioned, the Gulf Stream earlier today. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it says the study co-authored Naples reports finds rate-induced tipping in a simplified model of the wind-driven ocean circulation for the first time. In this model study, the Gulf Stream, which distributes heat to the North Atlantic and plays an important role in keeping the temperature in Western Europe relatively mild, tips between regimes when carbon dioxide is introduced at a rapid rate into the model. Yeah, so you don't want that because suddenly the areas in Europe that are moderately kept warm by the Gulf Stream, if the Gulf Stream stops, those folks don't get that warmth, and suddenly your temperatures are going to fall, and your ability to be able to grow crops and rainfall and everything is going to completely change.
Oh, man.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, Libby.
I think the latitude of Rome, Italy, is approximately that of New York City.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
that's how,
And
people are...
So when you start thinking about Europe's climate changing, right now it's much more moderate at those latitudes than you would expect, and it's because of that, what we used to call mid-Atlantic conveyor when I was
Yeah,
studying.
yeah.
Got it.
It's
Yep.
still there. It's the conveyor. And they're
Well,
literally...
it's still there, but maybe not for long. Yeah.
And they're talking about, it says, even in a safe operating space of 1.5 or 2 degrees above present, it's assumed that the that whole system might fail. And like as you say, all of a sudden there'll be a rapid change, especially in Western Europe. So
Well,
we've talked about that so
we
many
just,
times. Yeah.
just saw in the northwest.
Oh, yeah.
We had highs that were above anything anyone has ever seen ever.
Portland, Oregon, with 116-degree
Can
temperature.
you imagine? I can't even imagine that.
Well, and I
It
used
would
to
be hot and humid at 116 degrees.
Well, the thing that I always thought about was
That's
you
insane.
would be thinking about areas like people like say in Iraq, the
Sure,
temperature would
yeah.
hit 110 or 115, and it's
But,
a
it
total
would be
desert
dry
climate,
heat.
right?
Right. But this is 116, and there was some place in Canada that was 121.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, and that whole area. See,
And you're
and
going,
that
what is going on?
that area also is affected by a warm. I mean, like Vancouver, British Columbia, Vancouver.
Yeah.
They get a warm climate that gives them interesting,
and it is
areas.
a wet.
It is. It's
Heat.
and as
I can't imagine.
they
what
they
that would
called
feel
this
like. Oh.
a temperature dome, and I think,
Yeah.
well, that unless that's the new movie, following Thunderdome, I'm not sure.
Temperature dome.
Temperature Dome with Mel Gibson. Hey, wait, give me some more towels. I can't even. I'm sweating. I can't see. Well, all right. Let's. Boy, these are things that we've been watching, and
We've been watching.
and again, I'm just tying it to this past week's news. I'm looking at this. I hear these little pieces of information like, oh, one of the reasons why this Elsa, the storm becoming rapidly into a hurricane, is because nobody expected anything quite this early in hurricane season.
No one did.
Oh man! All right, so I think of Monty Python. No one expects a Spanish Inquisition. But,
Nobody.
all right, semi-super. This is again from your physics friends, Robert.
I like
They're
physics
always
people.
using words like semiconductors,
Ultra-thin semiconductors are electrically
superconductors.
conducted to superconductors for the first time.
Check this story out.
Wow.
Now look at this little picture. First, I thought it was s'mores because at the
Ooh,
top it
yeah.
has monolayer of molybdenum disulfide, which is MOS2, is sandwiched between.
Two protective layers of boron. Wait a minute. Wait, I saw it just a second.
to make it
and then
larger.
My little thing disappeared. Is
boron
sandwiched
and
between two protective layers of boron nitride
wow,
with molybdenum
molybdenum. Or-
rhenum.
boy, that's a tough
It
word.
keeps my
Rhenium too. There, yeah. Wow, what a
My little
sandwich.
signal keys disappearing. Contacts extending through the upper one. Layer of graphene, which is a gate, is used for electrical control.
Well, there you go.
Oh.
So HBN, and then MOS2, and then they've got. I mean, this is a whole delicious sandwich. And the interesting thing is, I'm going to go back. I have to click off my big picture because it's kept taking up my whole
Yeah.
screen, even though it's beautiful. Of course, then they talk about smartphones, televisions, or building technology. Semiconductors are so important, as we all know, Robert.
Yes.
But this idea of hooking super thin or ultra thin, is that beyond super thin?
Ultra thin, yes. It's
I think
beyond
ultra thin
super.
is one step, because if so, Ultraman is bigger than Superman or
Yes,
stronger.
stronger,
I don't know.
yeah.
So the semiconductors and the superconductors have been put together, and they're talking about really amazing new layers, stacked to form three-dimensional. It's kind of a three-dimensional crystal, no thicker than a single molecule each layer,
Wow,
and
it's
then
possi-
use them to build electronic
It says
components.
it's possible to adjust their electrical conductivity by applying a voltage and hence switch the current flow on and off.
Yeah. Okay. So now that's where we're the
Wow,
semiconductor.
this is just awesome.
I'm going to scroll down because I want to get the big deal. Okay, the reason why this combination of semiconductor and superconductor is so interesting is that experts expect components of this kind to exhibit new properties and physical phenomena. Of course, yeah. Weird, wonderful consequences, such as the flow of electrical current without resistance. And, well, that's pretty weird. Yeah.
Hooper conductivity.
Yeah, and then completely. Well, and so the part of it is, and there's a little video. We're going to leave that to you folks because
Sure.
we have so many topics. But
This
is
looks really neat.
This is really fascinating stuff. And the thing I'm trying to figure out, I am assuming that the reason why the first time they tried this, a lot of these physicist guys are pretty smart, Robert, and they probably wanted to do it, but there must be some new types of technology that allowed them to do it. Boron nitride. I just like the way that sounds. I was painting my deck, and it said it was enhanced with borates. And at first I thought it was maybe borat, but it was borates. But the layer of, the thing is, you got to love it when it has a layer of graphene for electrical control.
I'll say.
Nice stuff. Okay. This is
Very cool.
a delightful sandwich of technology. Now, Robert, this next story I found fascinating because one of the issues that a lot of people they're not exactly going overboard on, but they're saying that there actually is a tricky challenge. This is from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. I always like to see how they are proceeding. And they're looking at the fact that there seems to be one big, again, people are working on this, and they give you some hope, Robert, that the problem with all sorts of rechargeable batteries is this idea of dendritic depositions and
It
things.
says tiny metal deposits called dendrites threaten to curtail the development of rechargeable batteries. But engineers have solutions in sight.
That's really
Come,
good.
engineers! Gasoline-powered automobiles seem destined for the rearview mirror. In March 2021, the Swedish company Volvo declared that by 2030 it will sell only fully electric cars. I think you could do it before that. If you
yeah,
really wanted.
2030 is a
That's
long
a long
time,
ways
yeah.
off. Just weeks earlier, Ford had announced its plans to go all electric in Europe by the same year, while GM is aiming for its cars to be fully electric by 2035. GM,
well,
I think you could do better
Well,
than
let me
that.
stop you for a second. Didn't Tesla already make all of its cars?
All of its cars?
Well, by the
Every
year
single one of them?
2019,
Yes.
2018 or whatever.
Far
Now the
before-
sales really was surprising to me. It says that
It says last year electric vehicles made up less than 3% of all new car sales in the United States. But a recent analysis by the Bloomberg NEF predicts that their global market share will soar to nearly 60% in just 20 years.
I think they're wrong. I think it's going to be way faster.
I think they're wronger than wrong is wrong.
Well, that's-
I
that's
think
pretty- that's big.
I realistically think that if you had an affordable electric car, that more than 50% of people would buy a new electric car today.
Well, yeah. Especially if the price points and stuff are
Yeah.
comparable, and
Yes. Yes.
that it's not just a like a
if
boutique
you
item.
And if you could recharge it at your house, I am going to tell you this, folks, again. If you want a $1 trillion idea, and that is somewhere between $1 billion and $1 trillion.
I like it.
Okay, $1 trillion. I just made that add up.
I thought
This
maybe
is
you did.
Oh, absolutely. If you want between $1 billion and $1 trillion idea, this is what you do. Listen, Elon.
Okay.
All that you have to do is sell a package where you put a solar power, a solar panel on the roof of your garage. It trickle charges a battery system in your garage, and when you come home, you plug in your car.
I think that
That's
sounds
all you
easy.
have to do, and everybody's going to want a fully electric car today.
Yeah.
But you have to make it that way. You can't say, oh, you have to find the charger station, blah, blah, blah. No, because there aren't enough charger stations, and that's what's holding you back. So you have to make your house the charger station. For the vast majority of people, 98% of all travel is probably within the area where they live. And if you can charge at home,
Yeah.
then you're set. So if you want to have electric cars, folks, you've got to have a at-home charging station that is affordable and you can put on your garage.
We know some people that might be
simple.
working on that
it's
too.
simple. It's simple.
Well,
$1 trillion.
Now, their issue with the, and then this is sort of a separate issue. If you scroll down, you're going to see a beautiful picture of what they feel the problem is. The beautiful
What is the
picture that
problem?
appears to be autumn leaves.
Oh, isn't that gorgeous?
It is gorgeous,
I wonder what
it's
magnification that is.
it's the dendrites growing in
What
a
appears to be
typical lithium battery.
What appears to be autumn leaves are actually dendrites growing inside a lithium battery. Image captured with transmission electron microscopy.
Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking, I wonder what magnification we're at here. Yeah. Okay. So we're using an electron microscope. Okay.
Well, the only other thing I'm going to say as we leave this story, this is a fascinating story. Once again, though, it's hinging on the whole key thing of who has the best battery.
Right.
And then the other question would be, what if somebody came up with a system of electrification that might even work better? Or,
Right.
So I think that the electric car is coming faster than people think.
I think so too. And again, I think that if you could charge your car at your house off the grid, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody that's going, yeah, but my electric car, it really runs on coal, or my electric car, it really runs on, these other things. You're going, it's not green if your electric car runs on coal. Your electric car is green if it runs on sunshine.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the things.
Come on, guys, get this together.
The other thing, in fact, just for fun, I'm going to say, a lot of times when we talk about what Andre Rossi's doing, people just go, okay, well, when he does it, it is, in my opinion, based on the fact that not only are NASA and a bunch of other people looking at similar things, that this whole question of, is it going to be, how do we have the best battery? It could be, in fact, Robert, if you had enough electricity at your house, that you could just be generating with almost even easier than a solar panel.
Sure.
Maybe some little device that put out a large amount of electricity.
A lot of heat and a lot amount of electricity.
It could be that you would design your electric car so that the entire, monocoque body of the car is actually a capacitor.
And it's completely contained.
Right.
Right.
So anyway, let's just run over right next to the chart. I just put up the link to.
Let's do it.
One of my favorite places is this is the Andre Rossi blog about the development of his, and it's been set up nice because you can search. This is the Rossi blog reader, and they've kind of made it even. It's just nice, almost like typed out. They've used a nice little font, and it's just that if you watch this, you understand that within this community, the big thing they're kind of looking at right now is that as a marketable product, they're leaking a very small, what they call their ECAT SKL to LED lighting, and it's just like produces a huge amount of brilliant lighting, and they're kind of looking at, this is a product that they know is going to be used everywhere. And then they also talk about, well, what about the electric cars and all that? So, but the reason why I wanted to look at this today, Robert, because when I glanced at it last night, we've talked a lot about the fact that it doesn't seem like a big leap of physics or chemistry or science at all to realize that, as NASA does, that like the idea of a lattice confined fusion. There are all kinds of things that show us that what we have felt has been like low energy nuclear reactions or phase change or of changes in the isotopes, all these things that look like they're basic, physics. But if you scroll down,
Are you
see the one I'm looking at?
Speaking at 2021
076? Yes, that's the one.
Okay, that just blew my mind when I read that. It says, "Dear Andre,
okay, so
following on Iggy's question, someone may ask, what is the energy source of the ECAT? ? Most people won't want to read your paper, and I can't explain it. So if I answered simply 0 point energy, would I be correct? ? Thank you very much."
Then he says to Frank.
And Frank and then Andre says back, yes, that would be correct.
Warm.
What?
Whoa. We're done. There
So
you go.
are you telling me that the ECAT is powered by 0 point energy?
And I'm going to scroll down to where the question that this was from. I'm sure it's Ignatius Dalrymple, Iggy Dalrymple. He said, "You say you don't think that the SKL works via a cold fusion or LENR. Could you give a 1 or 2 word title to the process that the SKL's operation is based?
Yeah, I see that.
And then he answered. He said, "Please find the answer
here.
And it's in his. It's in this.
Long-range
very
particle
long
interaction,
which is I think of these things, recent publications in this realm. It's been read widely by thousands and thousands of people. But to clarify, Frank Ackland said, "Well, okay, wait a minute. So, his understanding of all the stuff that's in this long range particle interactions, which is." It's an interesting read, and I'm going to suggest, especially if you are a person who has some physics knowledge, that you read this, because it's been updated recently.
All right, I will have to read that. Before
and it's got all kinds of really cool stuff,
again.
but it's not going to be just an afternoon or at the beach read. So,
oh,
but I had to call your attention to the fact, Robert, that he's basically now looking at Casimir effects, 0-point energies, all kinds of interesting things. So
okay, I'm fascinated. You have my attention.
Well, if you think I had your attention then, wait till I jump back to what was going to be our next topic.
Okay.
Meat. So
what's for dinner?
This is from Medical Express. I love this. This is these guys are sort of good friends with the folks at Phys.org. Like they kind of they send their stuff over. I'm thinking they're probably thinking all these physicists and all these biologists, and they're kind of going, yeah.
I have to eat, right?
Anyway, according to this story, lab analysis finds that near meat and meat are not nutritionally equivalent.
Oh,
Robert.
I could have told you that.
Wow.
Oh, come on. Well, yeah, of course. Meat has all kinds of stuff in it.
And it has that great question: a juicy beef burger, or is it? So. Now, it's one of the things that is fascinating is that they're saying that some of the plant-based meat substitutes
taste and chew remarkably similar to real beef, and the 13 items listed in their nutritional labels, vitamins, fat, proteins, make them seem essentially equivalent.
So they've been working really hard on this.
But
right?
a Duke University research team's deeper examination of the nutritional content of the plant-based meat alternatives using a sophisticated tool of science known as
Bolomics?
Bolomics, I'm sorry.
Oh, like it must be
yes,
metabolism.
Exactly.
Okay.
Shows they are as different as plants and animals.
Well, there you go.
Duh. Yeah. They are plants and animals. Meat substitute manufacturers have gone to great lengths to make the plant-based product as meaty as possible, including adding iron-carrying molecules from soy and red beet berries and carrot extracts to simulate
here's my favorite.
Ooh, bloodiness.
And indigestible fibers like methyl cellulose.
Oh, I love that stuff. Wow. Indigestible fibers are like delish. And to bring the plant-based meat alternatives up to the protein levels of meat, they use isolated plant proteins from soys, peas, and other sources.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Some meat substitutes also add vitamin B12 and zinc to further replicate meat's nutrition. However, many other components of nutrition do not appear on the labels, and that's where the products differ wildly from meat.
Let's see. Oh, well, they compared
that makes perfect sense.
They compared grass-fed beef to popular plant-based. They did. They cooked 36 carefully. They carefully cooked 36 patties and found that 171 out of the 190 metabolates they measured varied. Well, I don't expect too much difference. The thing I'm just wondering about is when do they get? Whether or not there are issues that are important to your health is the biggest thing I'm looking at. So it looks like it's an untold story.
It says these nutrients are important for our brains and other organs, including our muscles. But some people on vegan diets, no animal products, can live healthy lives. That's very clear. Besides, the plant-based meat alternative contains several beneficial metabolites not found in beef, such as
phytosterols and phenols. I just can't get enough of those phenols.
Me either.
All right. Well, anyway, so this is. It looks like. It looks like in the quest for. One of the part that's so fascinating, Robert, is the whole. It's like the whole purpose of this is to make people feel like they're still eating meat,
right.
And I'm thinking, okay, so. Will we ever get over that paradigm at all? Probably not.
I believe that we will, because at some point, if all you're eating is this vegan meat,
Yeah.
then you're not going to really care anymore.
Well, especially if it's really, and of course, as long as I know I'm getting enough methyl cellulose.
Exactly.
Because, usually I just like to just chew on my toothbrush until it falls apart and then, All right, moon face. Now,
Hey,
Robert,
moon face.
I put this on almost because there's a phrase in here, we'll get a few sentences down into this article.
Okay.
And it actually mentions one of your favorite organizations. I think it was
Oh,
the Jesus Toast Society you've mentioned before.
I know them.
Yeah, well, sure. But this is a cute story. I first of all, I just love looking at the group of photos here. This is from University of Sydney, the Australians down there. This is a picture, and it says, not only do we see faces in everyday objects, our brains even process. Then it says something. Well, anyway, so. It processes. We're basically hardwired to see faces where there are none.
Of course we are. Yeah.
And of course, I'm seeing that. There's a little commercial where he's like in a Wi-Fi zone, and he's wondering if he's being watched, and he looks over, all these different things, like this little front of a little Cessna airplane, or a thing with speakers, or a parking meter. And it says you see things in the moon. In the moon, you think you see the man in the moon. You see toys, plastic bottles, tree trunks, vacuum cleaners. Some have even seen and imagined Jesus in cheese on toast. So toasted cheese sandwich. I've seen that.
I see that. Sure.
I say this tastes
Until now,
heavenly.
scientists haven't understood exactly what the brain is doing when when it processes visual signals and interprets them as representations of the human face. I don't think that's true. I think that it's pretty
Yeah.
a fairly straightforward thing. We are hardwired to do what? I recognize somebody's face.
Yeah, even
Like
from
mom and dad and your
especially
brothers and
when
sisters
you're
and-
very
Sure, yeah.
very very young. That's like your source of food and everything. Anyway, but according to them, there is a huge benefit to detecting faces quickly. It says, but the system plays fast and loose by applying a crude template of two eyes over a nose and mouth. A lot of things can happen. Facial recognition recurs lightning fast within 100 milliseconds.
Wow.
This is really cool.
1/10 of a second.
Oh, and it says even though in the testing they did, it said the objects are not truly faces. We know that, but the perception of a face lingers.
Right.
So this is really cool, and they have a term for it known as, it's face pareidolia. Pareidolia. It's common occurrence that we accept the notion of detecting faces. It is normal, but we don't have a similar cognitive process for the fauna. Okay, so this is really neat. It just the way we analyze this is just part of, as you say, the hardwiring of our brain.
Yeah. It says that these are not discarded as false detections, but undergo facial expression analysis in the same way as real faces do. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, and then they also point out that part of which you have to discern, in this quickly, is this a friend or is it a foe? Are they happy, sad, angry, or they're going to come after you or not? Or this is really something. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down to see what when objects look compellingly face-like, it's more than an interpretation. They really are driving your brain's face detection network, and that scowl or smile that your brain's facial. That's your brain's facial expression system at work. Oh, wow. So for the brain, fake or real faces are all processed the same way. Well, that is interesting.
Isn't that slick?
Well, man, but I keep thinking about how they, I look at I don't know, like some of the, like Japanese cartoons where the whole faces are, you're thinking, basically they're playing into parts of your hard wiring that are going to make you like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And then the other thing just made me think of for a second was that there are whole societies that don't see a smile as most people think of a giant
good.
toothy grin as a
Yes.
smile as a good thing, but others consider it as it originated from like a baring of the teeth as a threat
Sure.
thing. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. All right, Robert, we're going to go to
Mercury?
my little trio of Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn. Let's
All
see
right,
what we've
go
got
to
here.
Mercury here.
Not what you thought it was, sadly.
Inner workings, big wildfires mobilize Mercury. What are the risks to surface water? Ew,
Something
the-
you didn't think about in your when we were talking about
No.
global issues, and this last week or so, President Biden made a huge point of talking about hurricane season is upon us, but also the wildfire season, which is almost, he considers it to be a year-round kind of thing. So that's kind of what this is about. It turns out that they're going through and sampling all these wildfires, and they're finding out that large amounts of mercury are kicked out, and I think they're really concerned about the methyl mercuries, which are the worst.
Yeah, it says all the previous observations have shown an increase in a troublesome form of mercury
There it is,
known
yeah.
as methyl mercury downstream of recent fires. Researchers didn't know didn't know why or how much. More thorough study has offered up some rather nuanced answers. Mercury concentrations in stream sediments are often lower because so much mercury is volatilized, but total amounts of mercury downstream are often higher because of increased sedimentation.
So you got the two steps. Obviously, you violently burn off all this stuff, and then you have you're going to have more sedimentation because of the subsequent rainfalls and all that kind of stuff.
The details, however, remain as hazy as the smoldering forest. Any uptick of methylmercury is worrisome. Bioaccumulation could affect multiple species in a given ecosystem, including humans, via the consumption of fish.
Wow. All right, so, something else. It's just that there's so much more to look at.
So, not just the wildfires are burning houses and whole towns, but the mercury, the methyl mercury content goes up.
Yeah, and they're at the very. I'm looking sort of down at the bottom for the mechanism of it. They're talking about when mercury becomes airborne, either as when it's burned as a gas or by being attached to particles. But then one of the big problems is when this falls into the water table and all this. It says that they fall to the Earth's surface. They are metabolized by microbes, which basically create a higher level of the methyl mercury,
right?
Which is really something.
It says materials contain, among other things, a lot of mercury. In fact, soils, leaf litter, and debris contain up to 91% of the toxic element sequestered in U.S. forests, which is exactly where you want it to be. Wildfires mobilize that mercury when they sweep through the forest. Some studies based on lab and airborne measurements after wildfires have shown that fire can volatilize as much as 99% of the mercury held in vegetation and soils. Wow. So all of that nasty mercury stuff has been soaked up in the soil, soaked up in the vegetation. And when a wildfire comes through, because mercury can volatilize at a fairly low temperature, it then sends it back up into the air and it recycles it.
Yeah, and sadly though, it can often, like it says, it can often enter the watersheds. There, microbes can transform the mercury into methyl mercury.
Yeah. Wow.
That then enters the food chain. Well, that's a little bit scary.
Boy, this is a long article.
Well, it is, and it's also very detailed, and it gives you. I mean, I keep saying, how many more reasons do you need to be concerned about, global climate change? And for some people, it doesn't seem to make any difference, but it's there. It's another one of those. Again, this would be a system that when they talked about subsystems, this is a subsystem that the other article wasn't even thinking about.
Wasn't even there. Yep. Wow.
All right, so quick look at Jupiter.
Let's do that.
Jupiter.
A shadowy birthplace may explain Jupiter's strange chemistry.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that's a nice image. I just want you and our listeners to notice. Do you see the quote unquote great red spot there?
I do, and there's a face down below.
There's a face, and it's smiling. No, the great red spot is much smaller than it was when I was a kid.
Well, I don't blame you though, Robert.
It is not entirely
you were playing with
my fault.
Okay.
It was that way when I found it.
Oh, sure. That's what I used to say too. But this is a cool thing because it goes back to the actual formation of Jupiter as a planet. Because a lot of people see this had some new stuff to me. I was really this is really interesting, and you may as a par excellent astronomy aficionado, you may because It says Jupiter may have formed in a shadow that kept the planet's birthplace colder than Pluto. The frigid temperature could explain the giant world's
Colder than
unusual.
Pluto?
Well, and they think that. Let me see. We're talking. Basically, it's that it was in the. I have to scroll through my ads. It said if Jupiter were born at its current distance from the sun, the temperature of the planet's birthplace would have been around 60 kelvins or -2 in the end. But then, there's some astronomers that think that here it is, that Jupiter formed where it is, but a pileup of dust, a huge pileup
between the
shaded
planet's
it. Yeah,
orbit and the sun blocked sunlight, casting a long shadow that cooled Jupiter's birthplace.
Yeah.
The frosty temperature made nitrogen, argon, krypton, and xenon. These are not worlds, folks, from the Superman comic books. Freeze solid and become a greater part of the planet. The scientists suggest in study in the July astronomy and astrophysics.
So that's what I guess they're detecting is more amounts of those than one might expect.
They're seeing more nitrogen, argon, krypton, and xenon because you would expect at that distance that they wouldn't become solid, but at that distance they were solid.
Yeah.
So you were getting xenon ice and krypton ice and argon ice and nitrogen ice.
Now, one of the reasons why this is interesting is that there were a large group of scientists, and it mentions Cridlin was one of the scientists who, because of what they were saying, they thought that maybe Jupiter formed further away, like beyond Neptune and Pluto. But of course, if it were formed beyond Neptune and beyond Pluto, somehow it has to move closer to the sun, and they found that troubling, and so. This is a cool concept that that it was in the shade. All that material was between it and the sun.
And it says how to test the new idea. Saturn might hold the key. Saturn is nearly twice as far from the sun as Jupiter is, and the scientists calculate that the dust shadow that chilled Jupiter's birthplace barely reached Saturn's. If so, that meant Saturn arose in a warmer region and so should have not have acquired nitrogen, argon, krypton, or xenon ice in contrast. If the two gas giants really formed in the cold beyond the present orbits of Neptune and Pluto, then Saturn should have lots of those elements like Jupiter. It says, thanks to the Galileo probe, which dove into the Jovian atmosphere in 1995, astronomers know these abundances for Jupiter. What's needed, the researchers say, is a similar mission to Saturn.
Let's do it.
Unfortunately, while orbiting Saturn, the Cassini spacecraft measured only an uncertain level of nitrogen in the ringed planet's atmosphere and detected no argon, no krypton, no xenon. So Saturn doesn't yet constrain where the two gas giants arose.
Oh, okay. So
fascinating.
Very cool
need
stuff.
a probe to plunge into the Saturn atmosphere, whose sole purpose is to look for concentrations of nitrogen, argon, krypton, and xenon.
Very cool. Well, since they mentioned Saturn, I have another story that's related to Saturn.
Even
more
Saturn. More Saturn-y.
This is of course once if you were on that mission and your probe had reached Saturn, one of the places you would really want to look around at would be Enceladus.
The moon Enceladus.
This is one of the coolest places because they think there's a chance. So this process has to do with this story is about the fact that they can't account for levels of methane that were measured by the Cassini spacecraft.
Right.
And so this is fascinating because methane is a marker of certain things.
Right, and as exactly what you just said, being that methane is one of the markers for life as we know it, and there's more methane there than you would anticipate. Then to find methane around this in most of people's thinking, a fairly small moon. It's an icy shell with an ocean underneath. Well, if the ocean underneath has living things in it and methane is being produced, methane's going to come up out of the cracks and so forth, and they're going to find plumes of this, which is just fascinating.
And of course, they also link it to one of the things when they talk about places where you have. Like the extremophiles or like they talk about the hydrothermal vents in Earth's ocean. So they're saying that this perhaps the levels of methane might be consistent with microbial activity in hydrothermal events in
Yes.
the Earth's ocean. So,
And
This is cool.
And when you say oceans, you mean in that moon's oceans, and that is really cool.
yeah, and it does. It has plumes. It shoots these plumes out, and they fall back. It's one of the really really interesting places. And the hypothetical microbe population might explain this. So this is, you're going to want to read this whole article.
Yeah,
it's long too. It's cool.
It's a very long article. It says a full list. Okay, according to the authors, a very promising advance on the paper lies in its methodology, as it is not limited to specific systems such as interior oceans of icy moons. Paves the way to deal with chemical data from planets outside the solar system as they become available in the coming decades. So they're saying they're using these ideas
Yep.
to look for life in our solar system, and when we get the equipment that can look for these in other solar systems, then we'll be looking for signs of life there.
And also, they're also looking at the possibility of defining what they call abiotic, like
Yeah.
some sort of chemical processes that would create the same thing, but without some intervening microbe or something. So that's really fascinating.
Very
So-
slick.
All right.
It
let
looks
me-
like we've got about 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I know, time flies when you're having science.
Yeah, I've got a little. Well, you know what? Just for fun, because we talked about a lot of climate change, let's just jump over to Fox
Weather.
weather. Now, I'm showing
I'm
maybe.
not sure why I find that funny.
I'm showing more like I have several more minutes. I'm going to
okay.
go by the archive,
Sure,
so I'll tell you, give you a
Okay.
thumbs up,
Yeah,
heads up.
So
here.
if you give me a minute warning for the music there.
Fox. So here it is. This is from the New York Times, and it says Fox's new channel changes the climate for weather TV. Do you think that was like a tongue-in-cheek little title there? I just wonder.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So the interesting thing is that I guess from what I saw, because I actually saw this mentioned on some other thing, they're talking about the fact that Rupert Murdoch, who he's been one of the people that's pretty much like said, well, the climate always changes. There's nothing to think about. Nothing to look at here.
Nothing to look at here.
but
so it says, as viewers tune out cable news, Robert Murdoch is preparing the debut of Fox Weather. So this is actually a weather channel.
He's going to compete
from
with
Fox
Weather
News?
Channel because he
How are
understands.
you going to compete with a weather
Well, he
channel?
understands that a lot of people.
come on.
Well, you know what they're going to do is that it could be that their news stories might have more pizzazz to them. Like, I don't know, maybe they'll have. I don't know. I'm not even going to guess.
I
It'll
am
have
aghast.
Flaming maniacs. So I don't know what they'll have. So,
I don't know. A potentially powerful new player in the sphere long dominated by the Weather Channel. I can't imagine that you could compete in any manner whatsoever unless you're just going to make stuff up.
You may be onto something here, Robert. I don't know. Or unless you're going to just deny things.
Spin it so that
Oh,
it-
spin it. There we go. Spin it.
Oh man.
Or maybe they're just going to have,
I don't know.
a girls or something. I don't know
Girls.
what.
That's a song. Yeah, that's a good song. Anyway, the point is they understand that it's like everything. Everything is branding and advertising, and they're going
I
to.
guess.
I'm looking for where they actually. They're just really and I love their little subtle puns. The weather media ecosystem, from iPhone to apps to localized subscriptions, is lucrative,
Yeah.
if often overlooked by the industry. And so, again, it's all about they're going to figure out how they can turn this into more money.
They'll get sponsors from all over the world.
Oh yeah.
The oil and the gas, folks.
Don't worry, it's okay.
It's the weather brought to you by coal.
It says the Weather Channel is already
Exactly.
again another little subtle. The Weather Channel is already throwing some shade, and this is the quotes from Nora Zimlet. That says they couldn't even get a headline right about tropical storm Bill, said Nora Zimlet. And I mean that's the thing is that
Yeah, I just don't see this.
which was a benign storm that it claimed a benign storm
going well.
posed a massive risk to the eastern seaboard.
Wow, this is bonkers.
Oh gosh! The only thing that I will say that worries me is that somebody said that their hope that the belief was that they would do for weather reporting what they've done for reporting news. So
Ooh.
So that's all I'm going to say.
Well,
Well, but
that isn't
part
fun.
of what they want to do is turn it into again our news and the other news.
Yeah.
And that's what they're talking about. Now, the reason why this is important is because Rupert Murdoch has spent a lot of time as a big climate denier. You can go ahead and start your theme anytime, Robert.
Okay.
And so that's not good.
No, it's not.
Well, you know what?
So the very notion that you're gonna have a weather channel that thinks that the climate is not changing.
Yeah.
Wow. How are you gonna do that?
Robert, it's how you report it. You need to get Laura Ingraham to come out and you know they interview somebody like you that knows weather, or maybe Ted Bradstrom.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you just laugh at him
And
because
then
he's
just
like,
go, what an idiot.
how many crazy hippies can you have reporting on the weather?
At
No.
least two.
At least two. All right. Well, listen, that's all for this week. We're going to be back next week from
Oh, no, not that.
11 till 12 a.m. on Saturday morning. And then when you are on the radiosciencenews.org page, it tells you where you can actually listen to it again.